Hello, and welcome to Scarlet Serpent readings. Thank you so much for joining me in this collective mini reading where we'll be looking at how you can heal and integrate your shadow self. So straight away, we have patience, and I think that patience has to do with yourself, with sometimes catching yourself doing things or thinking things you feel that you shouldn't do. And I think especially in the spiritual community, there's this really high expectation that you might have as to the thoughts you should think or the actions you should take. It's like you might catch yourself putting yourself on this really high standard of, again, being enlightened or spiritual, and sometimes we forget that we're still human and part of the human collective, and that compassion that we often give to other people is something that can easily be overlooked in terms of ourselves, and especially in terms of our shadow. But through that patience and understanding, even if you catch yourself in these repetitive patterns, you find a light, you find power within yourself and the energy to make shifts in your life that can really open doors. And I think that's what the multiverse is about: opening doors, the potential to open different timelines, different realities just within your shadow. I think that there is a superpower in there, actually, that will only show itself with continued practice and compassion with yourself. Because once you find the purpose, I guess, of your shadow self, once you find, and of course this is a collective reading, so that would be different for each of you, but the more you understand different aspects of your shadow, the more you understand when you're acting in a subconscious way or unconsciously, or just doing, sometimes thinking things that you feel, again, or taking actions that you feel aren't aligned with your highest good. There's still room to not just learn from it, but recognize that energy as something that's useful, not necessarily the bad action, as I say, but that kind of automatic side to you, this kind of conditioned self, can be shifted, and that there is value. I think that's the biggest thing, is that there's value and potential even in your shadow. And the more you kind of sit with it and understand that potential, the more healing will get done, the more integration will get done. And I think that'll translate in a lot of opportunities for you that you wouldn't expect, and you probably couldn't get otherwise without the integration of your shadow. Again, different doors opening up, hidden jewels that would otherwise be left unseen. We have the Fool. It's kind of like a more advanced practice, I guess, would be to not see the shadow as a shadow, or even to kind of separate, your higher self from your shadow. I think as you evolve, you could actually put the two together as to just one being. It's like the shadow and light are still all you, and seeing yourself as light regardless. Both with the star, there's the two, I was going to say vase of water being poured, one onto the self of the figure and one onto the floor. And I think it's recognizing both of those as you, and both of those as having a purpose. So there is a purpose to your shadow, to this version of you that you feel is less than ideal. And maybe having that approach of kind of having the perspective of the Fool, where regardless, it's still the same divine self. It's still kind of like a ray of sunlight from the sun. It's the same energy, and finding value in that and that light that you possess, regardless of how dark you feel the shadow is. It's just the lack of light. And shadow actually brings dimension to the world. It's like if you've played video games where there's no textures, there's no shadows, it kind of feels flat. So you could even say that the shadow kind of lets you know that there is light in a way, that that's just a level of depth to you. And I think that's what the multiverse card is also saying, is that it represents depth, and if you could kind of shift the perspective of that side of you, like Four of Wands with self-love. Venus and Aries. I saw that card. Oh no, that's weird. I actually drew that card while I was doodling earlier, and it came up. So I think maybe that placement is very powerful for some of you, Venus and Aries, and it really does feel like self-loving. That compassion with the two major arcana, it just feels as though sitting with these energies would prove to kind of unlock some special abilities you have, tap into new versions of you that you never thought existed. There's the Eight of Cups. And we'll clarify these, I think. And Seven of Swords. This could be the versions of you that you consider to be your shadow, where there's this, with this Fool and Star, very optimistic energy. The Wands is kind of the coming together. And then we have the Eight of Cups, which is when you start feeling detached, and the Seven of Swords is when you start feeling a little dishonest with yourself. And I think sometimes you feel frustrated with the lack of awareness that you feel you should have. It's like, why am I still self-sabotaging? Why am I still, acting in this way and feeling detached? That should not be happening. But even as you make these choices, I guess, where the Eight of Cups isn't inherently a bad card, but I think sometimes you feel like you're not supposed to feel that way, that you're not supposed to be sad or detached or just walking away, even though you really don't want to, from certain situations and people. I'm just looking at these figures. They look very similar. It might be almost the same cut and paste imagery, but to see the Fool with the Eight of Cups is, I don't know, let's kind of get clarification on the Fool and the Eight of Cups first, because I do think there's a connection there with the biggest thing is patience. Four of Cups here. I think these are tied together, definitely. Four of Cups underneath the Fool. And Ten of Cups. Look, these are like opposing energies. That's interesting. That underneath sadness, there's the potential for great happiness and love. And then the same goes with the other direction now, with the Fool, that when you're always seeking adventure, there could be the potential for not being satisfied with the more still moments. And so I think a big takeaway would be to find value in the darker moments of life, the darker aspects of yourself, if there's addictions and patterns of thought that you don't feel are conducive to your spiritual growth, there is still value there, and it's kind of the yin and yang. If you could find that, I think that would be an advanced practice. If you could find how, even when you're in this very down, depressed mood, that right underneath it, within it, actually, there is great love and value. And I think that's part of the multiverse, is maybe finding that perspective. And finding it takes patience, but once you do, you can see the value in quite literally all aspects of yourself. Let's get one more card in terms of integration. We have the blue moon. Opportunities, divine power, and clarity. I think that's what the healing would result in, was kind of embracing that moon, that lunar energy. And yeah, with clarity, with opportunities in the multiverse, it's seeing through a more divine lens, I guess, in the same way, let's say, angels would look at you, where they only see the love that lies within you. If you could, and as you work on yourself and work on living in that sense of compassion, you'll find that it's easy. It becomes easier to live in that frequency constantly. Even when you're down, you're like, you see yourself as an angel would see you. Maybe sometimes kind of detaching from yourself would be easier. Like imagining, I don't know, through meditation, like step away from your body and kind of treat it as a different person. I think some of you might find it easier to love someone else sometimes, to be honest, to be patient with other people as opposed to yourself. And I think that kind of reflection would be a nice technique to provide healing and integration of your shadow. So hopefully this reading was helpful. I know it was short. It's a mini reading, but thank you for your support, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Take care.